Last year, I started replaying and reviewing all of the Assassin's Creed games. And now that I've officially played every game in the series, I did the impossible. We're gonna rank every Assassin's Creed game. I have played Liberation and Freedom Cry, but it doesn't feel fair to rank them here because they're too small in scope to be compared to the rest. Now, I haven't technically played the Chronicles game, so maybe I haven't played all the games in the series, but even if I did, I wouldn't rank them here for that very same reason. Finally, I just want to say the games at the bottom of my list are not terrible. I genuinely don't believe any AC game is bad, but I definitely think some are better than the others. This video is sponsored by Opera GX, the best and only browser built for gamers. Why is it the best? Let me break it down for you. Opera GX has GX Control, which limits the lag in games that you get from playing with a browser open or listening to music. This means you can keep a ton of tabs open while you're playing and it won't hurt your performance. It works by using these limiters, which let you restrict how much CPU or RAM that Opera GX gets to use. Then you have the network limiter, which caps the bandwidth used by Opera GX so you can game or stream without lag. Compare it to Chrome and it's not even funny how much better this is for gaming. We spend so much time on our computer, so our browser should look good too. That's why Opera GX lets you customize everything from themes to wallpapers to colors. Plus, you can switch from light to dark mode, which is a lot easier on the eyes. There's also GX Corner, which is probably my favorite. This is a curated list of new releases, discounts, and gaming news all in one place. I spend a lot of time talking about games, so instead of visiting a ton of different websites, I can find news and releases for every platform here on Opera GX. Finally, Opera GX is on mobile with the app that connects directly to your desktop. Anything you find here, you'll get on your desktop too. Go ahead and click the link below this video to install Opera GX and upgrade to the best browser made for gamers like you and me. Number 12, Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Yeah, really. It is very hard for me to give Valhalla credit. When I think about what I look for out of these games, Valhalla just doesn't tick very many boxes for me. It feels like it's made for the lowest common denominator, for the widest audience possible, and for people who probably aren't even gonna finish it. It's selling you on the ultimate Viking experience, but I can't say it does a good job at that. We are well beyond the point of an Assassin's Creed game focusing on the assassins. And hey, I knew that going in, but the game sold me on being a return to classic elements, and that made it all the more disappointing when I found out that it just wasn't. I also really do not connect with Eivor like I do with the other protagonists. The choose your own dialogue thing from the last two games, it doesn't make me closer to these characters. It actually pushes me away. They try to make this combat feel brutal and crunchy. Remember that quote before the game came out? But it just didn't feel satisfying to me. I know a lot of you really like this game, and I'm not so clouded by my own bias that I can't see the good qualities. Valhalla is a fun game in the way that a lot of games out there are fun. I'm sure I could boot it up right now and go on a raid. I could do a side mission or uncover more of the massive map. But I know that I just feel weary very soon after. Any attempt to dig beyond the surface just leaves me disappointed. Valhalla's best quality is its visuals. I don't think anyone can argue, this world looks incredible. It's also the first console game to release with a 60 FPS mode thanks to next-gen consoles. But beyond that, it just isn't a game made for me. Compared to the older games, really no decision Valhalla makes allows me to put it above the rest. It's just incompatible with me as a gamer, and for that reason, it comes last. Number 11, Assassin's Creed Rogue. It feels unfair to rank this game at all, because while it is technically one of the main games, it definitely wasn't treated like it. It's a smaller, shorter experience that doesn't have the time to fully explore all of the themes that it tries to tackle. Shay being a Templar is obviously unique and interesting. For the 7th game in 7 years, that was a welcome change. But at the end of the day, it doesn't take the time to dive deeper into its systems as much as it should have. It's just hard for me to look at Rogue as more than a sequel to Black Flag and a subversion of expectations instead of a game that stands on its own 2 feet. Luckily, it did come at a time when the AC formula was really fun. This game is very much a Black Flag sequel. In fact, it's Black Flag on ice. I like Black Flag a lot. So there's little doubt in my mind that, of course, this is a game I like too. And the insight it gives us into Haytham Kenway, one of the coolest characters in this series, plus that tie-in to Unity, make this something that I think is worthy of praise. It just needed more tender love and care to be ranked higher in the series for me. Number 10, Assassin's Creed Odyssey. This is the most controversial game in a controversial series, by far. Some people would put this at the very bottom of their list based on principle alone, because they don't think it deserves the Assassin's Creed title. I am not one of those people, because as you guys have seen, I can give this game credit. I think Odyssey is a really well-made video game, and while it totally upends the AC formula in a way that's tough to swallow, it has a genuine fun factor that I love. The setting in ancient Greece is still so captivating. I mean, you're sailing around the Mediterranean as a mercenary for hire. That's not exactly Assassin's Creed material, I know that, but I can't deny how compelling that is for a video game. For me, though, this goes a bit too far outside of the box. The constant search for loot, the massive stretches of map, the general lighthearted and goofy tone, those are big turnoffs for me. Cassandra is a great character. She's so expressive, and I love her emotion, but a lot of her more serious moments, they don't pay off for me because of the writing and the tone. You guys know, I'm an edgelord, man. I want my protagonists to be serious and brooding. So the overall flavor of this AC is not for me. The combat is flashy and it's nice to look at, but it feels a tad bit too floaty and magical for my taste. No matter how much some of us hate to hear it, Assassin's Creed Odyssey is an Assassin's Creed game. It is, but it's an evolution that leaves behind a bit too much, and it doesn't replace it with anything that I prefer. Number 9, Assassin's Creed Syndicate. This game really surprised me when I played it for the first time this year. The world is gorgeous. The stealth, rock solid, and a lot of the changes people hate, they didn't bother me all that much because the foundational AC experience is still there for the most part. This is also a Quebec game, which means it's super polished. That said, the Fry twins are probably my least favorite protagonists across the series. I find it so hard to believe that these 2 idiots are assassins. The sing-songy tone is a big turnoff for me too. It undermines the more serious moments, just like Odyssey. The rope launcher, while it does get rid of a lot of the parkour you would be doing in the world, is super fun to use. And big set piece moments like crossing the Thames are incredible. The world is visually stunning and the environment is bursting with ambient animation that impresses to this day. Quebec, while I don't like some of their writing, I did like the side characters. The cast is genuinely interesting, and it's fun to see how many historical names they could fit into the game. Luckily, most of the gameplay systems are still in the old mold of the series, and they borrow a lot from Unity. This is a genuine city game, and London is great. Unfortunately, they decided to take the parkour system from Unity and just gut it, man. I mean, I know that was a tough system to wrangle, but once you figured it out, it worked like a dream. The decision to hamstring free running for a more streamlined system, it feels like a mistake. Stealth feels incredible, and while the combat is questionable, I love how I can play as an assassin, even though I don't believe in my character being one. The map is a bit too carved out for consumption for me, for my taste, with activities that are fun so long as you forget that you're doing them to fill a progress bar. Syndicate is the ultimate mixed bag. It's full of things that I really like and things that I really don't like. But overall, it's a great video game, but it gets bumped down my list because of how incredible the other ones are. Number 8, Assassin's Creed. Man, I want to put this game at the top of this list based on principle alone. If I look at AC1 in a vacuum, I can't help but give it all the praise in the world. It's such a unique video game that feels like it wasn't made with any sort of marketing research or metrics designed to sell the experience to the largest group of people, otherwise known as the way the games are made now. It's not trying to wow you with the setting. It's not filled with side activities. Everything that exists here serves the identity of the game. A bartender is kidnapped and forced into this creepy machine to relive his ancestors' memories. From there, you're plunged into a whole new world where everything you thought you knew is a lie. There are shadowy organizations fighting for the fate of the world, and you're caught in the middle. It's almost more sci-fi than action-adventure. You're introduced to the series' first assassin, Altair. He wields a single hidden blade like an instrument of justice, doling out swift and brutal assassinations while wearing his signature white assassin robes. His transformation from brash young recruit to savior of the Brotherhood is quick but satisfying. The mission structure in this game gets called out for repetition, but not only is that unfair, it's actually a dumb point to make considering what we do in the modern games. The fact is, it simply doesn't stick around long enough to feel repetitive. You're bouncing from city to city, doing similar things, but never for too long, and everything you're doing serves the main mission. You're investigating your targets. In a microcosm, sure, maybe if you take a magnifying glass, it's repetitive, but dude, doing the same stuff in Valhalla for like 10 hours is way more repetitive to me. The original game doesn't waste my time. It focuses on modern day more than any other game, and my God, it's just unapologetically authentic. I love AC1. It should be ranked higher, but outside of the vacuum, it feels too much like a product of its time for me to bump it higher. The controls can feel stiff, and while this is where the original Assassin fantasy started, it's hard to argue that it wasn't improved on very shortly after. If Assassin's Creed stopped right here, it would be one hell of a one-off game. Number 7. Assassin's Creed 3. This should totally be higher, and it would be if not for how amazing the next 6 games are. AC3 has a special place in my heart. It came out when I was in high school studying American history. You can't make this stuff up. I loved experiencing that in this game, and I think it weaves the Assassins Templars conflict within historical events better than most of the games in the series. But I also loved the philosophical debates and the father-son dynamic between Connor and Haytham. You get so many incredible moments like this rooftop scene where Haytham made all of us question whether the assassins were really the good guys. And then you had that classic reveal where it's like you're playing as Haytham, but oh my gosh, he's actually a Templar. It's a little rickety technically, and the cutscenes just didn't age very well. The pacing is definitely off too, but the combat was brilliant. Some of the best combat animation of the entire series comes from this game. Connor gets a lot of flack as a protagonist, and I think I'll always be a defender of him. I think it's hard to put into perspective just how difficult his situation is, and even when he does make decisions out of anger, makes mistakes, I find myself sympathizing to the very end. He's not like a fun bro to hang out with like Ezio or Edward, but I respect his determination and his grit and his willpower. AC3 also has a criminally underrated helping of side content in the form of homestead missions. It's still some of the best spent time in this game, recruiting different patriots for the cause and supporting them on Connor's land. I also love that this game introduced the first physically imposing assassin. Connor's a guy on the street that you would not mess with. He's a brute force of nature. He towers over most enemies and fights in a style that makes you weigh him against the likes of Ezio. And that axe, it's so cool and iconic. And it doesn't rival the hidden blade, but surely it makes its own mark in the series. Number 6, Assassin's Creed 2. This is a lot of people's bona fide favorite, and for good reason. It's the start of Ezio's journey, and really, this version of Assassin's Creed became the identity of the entire series and has remained that way even through the reboots. When people think of Assassin's Creed, they generally think of the white-hooded assassin running around the rooftops of Italy. This game established an entirely different tone. It changed things up. The modern day stuff, it's still there in full force, and it's brilliant, especially the ending, but now the historical side felt like this action-packed B-movie romp. And clearly that was the direction to go in because it sold far better. And it really shaped where the series is now. Like any good sequel, AC2 took the cool weapon from the first game and gave you a second one. Dual hidden blades were so damn cool. Same with the gun. It was amazing to meet all of Ezio's family, to witness his origin story and follow his 20-year revenge journey to becoming an absolute badass. The only reason this isn't higher on my list is I prefer the older Ezio. I love an origin story as much as the next guy, but the sequels, they really flesh out this character in ways that I find more satisfying. That said, this is where the swashbuckling, era-forward flavor of the series began. And it does a really great job even to this day. It has fantastic characters that are unforgettable, settings like Florence, Venice, and Rome, they're just delightful, and above all else, this is just a fun video game in ways that games should be fun. The pacing is nonstop, never slows down to a lull or a crawl, and yeah, it's still fun to play to this day. Number 5. Assassin's Creed Revelations. This is definitely the biggest surprise so far. So many lists put Revelations near the bottom for being just another sequel or for tower defense. But what this game does for Desmond, Ezio, and Altair, the trifecta, to tie these three characters that I grew to love over many years together, it's just magical. Almost like the first game, it feels like Revelations was not made purely out of marketing metrics. It was made for fans of Ezio, of Assassin's Creed 2 and Brotherhood. It was made for people who love Ezio enough to play him as an old man in a destination that isn't as exciting as Italy. That said, I love Constantinople. It's super unique when you look at the entire series, and the dynamic between the Janissaries and the Assassins, it's all really cool stuff. I also love getting to play as Mentor Ezio. Sure, he's got a white beard, he's a little bit older, but the way you get to take your Brotherhood members on missions and actually see them grow and evolve into fully fledged assassins, that was a brilliant way to flesh out the mentor assassin fantasy. In general, I just love a more mature character. I love the writing in this game and how it doesn't rely on a cartoonish supervillain. Ezio is wise, not only beyond his age, but beyond his own comprehension. That ending scene in the library in Masyaf between Desmond, Ezio, and Altair, it's so special. I'm not afraid to admit that I have a total underdog complex, like I root for the underdogs all the time when I can, but Revelations is a gem to me, and it shines brightly enough that it deserves to be this high in the rankings. Number 4, Assassin's Creed Origins. This right here, guys, this game, this is the reboot game that still feels like Assassin's Creed to me. It still has some connective thread that links back to the older games, but it's also new. So much is new in this game, and guess what? It actually works. I love Bayek. I really connect with him as a character, and the choice to not go for dialogue options gives him a better sense of self. You can tell the narrative team and the animation teams, they spent so much time developing his character. Just watching him perform on screen, he is incredible. It's a shame what happened with Aya, but I can't help but still love both of these characters. Outside of Adewale and Edward, I think they might be the best main character duo to appear in the same game together. The setting in ancient Egypt is just fascinating to me in a way that feels new, genuinely new, but also feels very Assassin's Creed. Maybe it's the Middle Eastern vibe because that was also sort of the setting for AC1. It still feels like I'm playing as an assassin in Origins, but that experience is stretched across a vast world that is incredible to explore. My goodness. The fantasy of exploring ancient Egypt, it's something about it. It's just got this magic sauce for me. Also, I love this combat. Again, it definitely feels looser and different compared to the older games because of the hitbox system, but it's an RPG combat system that still feels deadly. I'm not wailing on enemies for 5 days to kill them. My only real gripe with Origins is the looting. It's just not that fun to find incrementally better pieces of gear because it disrupts the flow of gameplay. I've got to dive into a menu to equip something that's, slightly better, and the level gating is insane in this game. So you're kind of forced to go through this looting gameplay loop and rinse and repeat it every 10 minutes. If you don't like the open world RPG games, you might see this as the beginning of the end for Assassin's Creed. But I choose to see it as an evolution that genuinely works on its own. It is on its own little island as a reboot game that really works for an old school fan like me. So it's just a mystical, wonderful game. Number 3, Assassin's Creed 4, Black Flag. On paper, I don't think I'm supposed to love Black Flag as much as I do, but damn it, we don't get to choose what we love. And Black Flag is unforgettable. In 2021, for me, it represents what Valhalla tries to do and fails at, which is to balance two different fantasies. Edward feels like a pirate, but he also feels like an assassin. And that delicate balance is so hard to strike, and they just nailed it in this game. Edward has his own agency. His story takes you all over an interesting, culturally diverse world. Sometimes it sends you barreling on a straightforward path, and others you're meandering across the Caribbean. You're meeting so many wonderful characters. Adewale, Mary, and Bonnie, the list goes on. The story has some down moments, but the fall from glory only makes the rise so much more satisfying. And the ending, guys, it's so powerful that it produces emotions from me that I can't watch the cutscenes without tearing up. That's how you know a game is special to you. On the gameplay side of things, it presents some completely new ideas that are compelling in their own right. Combat is janky. That's probably one of the lowest points for Black Flag for me, but it's still fun. This is an Assassin's Creed game, but in a lot of ways, it's a Black Flag game. And what I mean is, sailing in a boat across oceans as a pirate, that just shouldn't work for Assassin's Creed, but it does. This is the first AC game where I caught myself exploring the open world for fun. No objectives, no sense of directions, just, oh, what's that island over there? This sailing thing is fun, let's keep sailing. Sea shanties, ship battles, diving bells. There's no shortage of piratey stuff that is just pure, unadulterated fun. Another weak point for Black Flag is how it handles modern day. It's really not great, but in the grand scheme of things, there's only a few games in this series that get it right for me. So it's not enough to bump it down my list. Black Flag, yeah, it remains one of the very best AC games to this day. Number 2. Assassin's Creed Unity. All right, if you need a moment, if you need to step away from the video, I understand. Yeah, no, I get it. This is a big surprise. And hey, it may even be upsetting for some of you. There might be some tears out there. I guarantee I'll have comments telling me how wrong this is, but damn if it doesn't feel so right. For so long, the narrative has been, this game could have been so good if it was given more time. But I think that does so much to diminish what is still here, what came out. This is the most ambitious Assassin's Creed game. This is the modern vision for the franchise, realized before it was changed forever. It does require some patience, and yeah, it's still buggy. There are at least 5 other main characters I like more than Arnaud, but once you navigate the issues and actually look at what's here, you find a game that looks and feels incredible. It takes the DNA of what came before and pushes it further in ways that are true to the identity of this series. It doesn't rewrite the DNA. It sticks to the path. When I look at the parkour, the settings, the activities, the general game feel of Unity, this game, it's close to being the best Assassin's Creed has ever been. This is a game that I think we can say with full confidence was made for people who loved what came before, and for people who were looking for something new and exciting and eye-catching to get hooked into this series for the first time. Of course, it didn't manage to do that. There are some absolute weaknesses. You know, combat just doesn't flow like it should, and the stealth is fun when it works, but sometimes it doesn't. Still, guys, if the modern day felt more cohesive, and this game, if it didn't lean so heavily into co-op, even with the buggy launch, I'd probably have this at the very top. But I can't, because there's still one game that, yeah, it just hasn't been topped. And with the current direction of these games, it probably never will be. Number 1, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. This to me remains the ultimate Assassin's Creed game. It's not just nostalgia. No, I played this in the last year, and it was so fun that I ended up 100%ing the video game. I completed absolutely all of this 11-year-old video game because I wanted to, not because I needed to. It improves on almost everything in Assassin's Creed 2. Ezio has reached his peak form, and he's an absolute killing machine. He exists to carve up Templars, and boy does he. The fantasy of being a fully fledged assassin who works with the Brotherhood to recruit citizens to fight against the Borgias, it makes you feel awesome and powerful. It's also a city game. We're in one place, we're in Rome, and this city is incredible. This game proves that great art direction makes a game last a lifetime, because somehow the music, the graphics, it feels so authentic without looking all that impressive. There are so many great set pieces, moments that are unforgettable. There's fantastic side content, amazing characters, and a focus on the assassin fantasy. But again, it excels at the power fantasy. The main knock is actually that for Brotherhood. It's that Ezio is too powerful. It became counterkill combat, and that's just too easy. But let me tell you something. It feels so goddamn good. The animation hits just the right blend of pseudo-realism and over-the-top B-movie action. Yes, I know Ezio's overpowered. That's why it feels so good. Core mechanics like blending and social stealth are at their absolute height in this game. Again, Rome is a fully realized single city where no stone feels unturned. You get the Leonardo missions, which are still my favorite pieces of side content in the series. This one continues Desmond's story and leans even further into the modern day conspiracy with the truth puzzles. It still hits that magic blend of modern day and Animus storyline that, yeah, it holds up to this day. You get the best parts of almost every single Assassin's Creed system, every idea in this video game. Brotherhood, it's the quintessential Assassin's Creed experience. In 2021, to this day, this is it. And there you have it. Every single Assassin's Creed game ranked. If you made it to the end, thank you so much for watching. This is my list, of course, but I'd love to know what you guys think about the games. Please give me your ranking of all 12 Assassin's Creed games in the comment section below. I'm really excited to read what you guys have to say. Just a quick reminder, we are still reviewing Brotherhood 1, 2, and Revelations. Those are review videos I haven't made, but I promise I will get to them. It just takes me some time, so I really appreciate you guys' patience and, of course, your support on this series that we've been doing for what feels like forever now. If you liked this video, be sure to hit the like button and also subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Also, click that bell to get notifications when I upload my next video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.